So when you signed up to follow Jesus, what did you think you were getting into? Unconditional love, peace, hope, freedom, joy, happiness? At this point in Luke's gospel, a lot of people are following Jesus, large crowds wherever he goes, many, perhaps most, wanting the benefits that they've heard he bestows. Some have left their jobs to follow Jesus. Some have left their families to follow Jesus. Some, after being healed of illness and disease or having demons cast out, also are following Jesus. Some just join in as he passes through the neighborhood, astounded at what Jesus is saying, astonished at what Jesus is doing, amazed at how Jesus' presence touches the inner spirit of themselves, transforming their lives, not always in the way they expect, sometimes not even in the way they want. It seems interesting, intriguing, exciting to be a Jesus groupie. One day, Jesus stops and turns to all those following along, perhaps wondering why they are here, what they want, what they think they are doing in following him, maybe wondering if they have any idea who he is or what he's about, perhaps wondering what they will do when they really discover what it means to follow him, the risks, the cost, the demands of going down the road he's traveling. So Jesus turns to them and says, "If any of you come to me without turning your back on your mother and father, your sisters and brothers, your life partner, all of your loved ones, you cannot be my follower." Seems a little harsh, actually very harsh. Not quite what we would expect from Jesus, who later, while hanging on a cross dying, still, according to one of the gospel writers, has a presence of mind and concern for his mother to make arrangements for her well-being and ongoing care after he's gone. What does Jesus mean by this startling statement? In first century Israel, family was to be given top priority, the number one loyalty in your life. A person was totally attached to her or his family, and it was completely unthinkable to turn against family, absolutely scandalous. In this statement, Jesus may be anticipating an alternative family for those who follow him. And Jesus knows that in this context in which he lives, if his followers choose this new family over their own family, they can be nearly certain that their own family will retaliate. Commitment to Jesus will bring conflict, even with the most important people in your life. Oh, and by the way, Jesus says, it's not just your personal relationships you have to surrender in order to follow me. You have to give up your whole self, too. Oh, yes, and another thing before I forget, Jesus says, you can't be my disciple if you don't say goodbye to all of your possessions. Just so you know, Jesus makes certain they understand, before we go any further here, following me demands your whole life. Being a disciple of Jesus, following the Jesus way, is a costly proposition with unclear consequences, full of ongoing conflicts with others and with yourself. But as Jamaican-born Marcus Garvey said in his bold, uncompromising way, people who are in earnest are not afraid of consequences. Is this what you thought you were getting into when you signed up to follow Jesus? Jesus doesn't stop here, of course. It's not just that a follower of Jesus has to jettison all personal baggage, as if this was a sufficient merit badge to earn God's favor, but everything has to be jettisoned for a purpose. The purpose of making room to take up the cross and follow Jesus. Now, to understand this, taking up the cross stuff, we need to look at how Jesus ends up on the cross in the first place. What does he do? How does he live so that the government of Rome wants to kill him? What does he do? How does he live so that leaders in his own religious tradition turn him over to the Roman government to be killed? What is so threatening and scary about Jesus that even his closest, most committed followers flee the scene, betray him, deny that they ever knew him? Well, Jesus hangs out with the outcasts, those on the edges, the fringes, those in the margins of society, those with whom no one else wants to associate. Jesus takes on the religious establishment of his own religious tradition that has shaped and formed him, breaking rules and laws that he believes are counter to what God intends. Stepping over boundaries that he believes dishonors God, dishonors the whole people of God, dishonors God's good creation. Jesus reframes and reforms the religion he has learned in order to bring it in line with what he has come to understand as God's purposes for the world. Jesus takes on the political establishment, challenging governments, caring more for political gain than for the well-being of its citizens, calling for allegiance to God, not to Caesar and empire. And for this approach to life, Jesus is killed as an insurrectionist and rabble-rouser. Are we ready to hang out with those on the fringes of life, befriending those people in mutual relationships of equality, not building relationships to raise our own status, but living in community with those most left out of all communities? Are we prepared to take on the religious status quo, even in our own denomination, even in our own community of faith, when God shows us the bigger picture, a larger truth, a more holistic way of life? Are we ready to stand up and say no to the injustices in our society and world, particular decisions, specific actions, and also systematically structured injustice embedded into the very fabric of our lives? Do we really understand what it means to follow Jesus? Are we prepared to walk down this path regardless of the consequences? Because you see, this is the real question of the Lenten journey. Is this what you thought you were getting into when you signed up to follow Jesus?